So this is a picture of Aristotle. And I titled this slide, A View from the Topos. And topos is a Greek word that we currently derive words like topography from. And it means place. And so what Aristotle said, and this is in 300 BC, he basically said that he defined place as a containing body in which it interacts with the things or the bodies that are contained within it. And that's how he defined place. And then he went on to say that a thing is really an object that exists within this contained body, and it can only move within that contained body, and it can't move without it. It's a lot of big words from a guy, many, many years ago, to really say that we need to think differently about the concept of a place. How many of you use Foursquare? Okay. How many of you checked in here today when you got to the Glen Gould? Okay. So pretty much everyone who uses Foursquare. So that concept of a place where there's a lat long, there's a building that we check into, it's okay. It's a good starting point. But the concept of a place that Aristotle's talking about and that I'm talking about today is really not a physical one at all. In fact, it really is about thinking about objects, things, people, media, everything being geo-addressable and having a geo-relationship with everything else. And that's really what he's talking about. One of the things that we do at the LBMA, because we're an industry association, is we do a lot of research. And we've been working in Chicago with the Department of Transportation and also in New York with buses, with digital screens on the side of the buses. And what we did was, as an experiment, is we took these buses with these digital screens, and instead of selling that media in the traditional way that you would buy that media based on the route the bus travels and potentially demographics it's hitting, we don't do that. In fact, what we do is when the bus stops at a red light and an intersection, we gather all the real-time check-in data from Foursquare and Facebook and Google and Banjo and everything else that's available to us, and we build a real-time aggregate demographic profile of the people who are actually there. And then we serve an ad into the side of the bus that actually matches who's at that intersection. And then when the bus moves, when the light changes and goes to the next intersection, we do it again. So what we're actually doing is we're delivering media now. We're delivering advertising purely in a contextual way, in a moving object, based on the actual people and the data that location data is afforded to us in that scenario. So what is a place? Well, today, or at the end of last year, a place looked like this. So it's based on check-in. So it's based on Foursquare and Facebook and Yelp and formerly Gowalla, and now Facebook as well. And so there was about 102 million places that were mapped across these platforms. And they were accessed by 231 million people. And you see the number of impressions. That's 2011. Let's jump to 2013. So now we've got about 2.4 billion places. And it's because we're expanding the concept of what a place is. So when you start to factor in Wi-Fi hotspots, billboards, print billboards, digital screens, television sets, all of these things being considered as locations that we can engage with based on where we are and the data that results from that, we now have a whole different mindset around what is a place and how we define that. And if we advance this even further to 2016, now we've got 53,630 million places. Because now we can start to factor in the cars that we drive that are all Wi-Fi enabled and are effectively sensors on the network as well, all the mobile devices, every app download, and everything else that's going on. As I said, every person, place, and thing in the future will be geo-addressable and have a geo-relationship to everything else. Location is this paramount piece of data that is going to be pervasive and across every single thing that we do. And it creates a big challenge for marketers. And the challenge is this, is that if you think about how we get access to location data today, there's these three rings that we look at the LBMA. The orange ring is the location determining technologies. So 90% of what we see in North America today, like a Foursquare app, is using the GPS in the smartphone to determine somebody's location. But we could also use cellular towers to triangulate your position. The carriers know where your phones are, otherwise they wouldn't be able to charge you. And then when we're inside of a building like this, we can use Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or other things like that to figure out where you are. And if you look at that blue ring, we have all the media that exists in the world around us today. We have print and television and billboards and digital signs and radio and all that kind of stuff. All of which, I'm going to argue, can be made to be location-based if we can layer the data on top of it that comes from the orange ring. And then you have this green ring, which is the really confusing ring for marketers and retailers and brands today, which is everybody coming out with new platforms and services, from mobile payments companies to augmented reality companies to mobile coupons to SMS and mapping and everything else, all saying we're a location-based something. So it creates a lot of confusion in the world for people who are out there doing it. And yet all media, as I argued in that blue ring, can be viewed as location-based. When you look at this picture right here, who can tell me where that truck is right now? No. Any ideas? Look at what's on the side of the truck. Boston, correct. So what they've done here is they've basically taken a drink we all know, Maker's Mark, and they've put it into Boston speak, right? Maker's Mark. And they're basically saying, this is an ad that's relevant to the people of Boston because it's local and it's in the language and the way that they talk, right? It's a location-based ad. And I can argue a print billboard, any print billboard, whether it's on a moving vehicle or standalone, it has been a location ad from the beginning of time. It's only relevant to the people in front of it. Your home is a location too. So we have to stop thinking about location-based marketing in places just as, you know, the office that we check into or the restaurant we check into, but everywhere. And so when you think about your home, and you think about your living room, and you think about that television set that's sitting there, we have to start thinking about this as well. And Amber talked, she mentioned GetGlue in one of her examples. And GetGlue and Miso and Shazam and all these guys are reinventing their platforms or inventing new platforms around how do we engage with people when they're in front of their television and layer location data on top of that. So taking the concept of Foursquare, a check-in, but instead of checking into a place, a lat long, I'm checking into content now based on where I am. If you watched the Super Bowl this past February, Shazam was all over it. 1/3 of those $3.5 million TV commercials were connected to Shazam. And what does that mean? That means H&M, Toyota, Pepsi, all the guys who did it, while you're watching, just like Shazam can listen to a piece of music, instead now it listens to a piece of audio signal coming off of the television commercial, and it creates a call to action that reacts to it while you're there, whether you're in a bar or in your living room. And then it creates this response for H&M, which then drives traffic, incentive, offer, that starts in one medium, television, manifests in another medium, mobile, starts in one location, your living room, and moves you to another location, the retail store, with directions on how to get there from where you are now. It's about a layering of location data and a combination of media and layering those things together.